Randi.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to Character Day.
It's great to be with you.
I'm so happy you're here. Yeah, we're kicking off the whole night. We have over 90,000, I think it's almost 88,000 events happening in 123 countries right now.
Wow.
Yeah, they're watching films on character. We made a film called The Science of Character, so they're watching films on character education. We also made a film called The Making of a Mensch, which looks at character development through a Jewish lens, and we made a film called The Adaptable Mind. So there's people all
I
over
love it.
all over the
And
world.
you're doing it in the month of Elul,
Of
which is
course.
where we should be actually thinking about how we make mentions.
That was intentional. So you've had such an amazing career, and I would love to start off just hearing, what are your thoughts on why the conversation of character education has really come into play in the last several years? I mean, what is your thinking around that?
So, without being political,
Yeah,
and I
without being
want to be
political.
without being political tonight, just juxtapose the conversation in Britain over Brexit,
Yeah.
the conversation in Germany over Syrian refugees, and the conversation in the United States that has unleashed in this political period of time, not just anger, but a sense that it is okay, that the only way that someone rises is to diminish others. That's why character education, that's why contemplation about values becomes so important, because for a democracy to work, we need to actually be about how we're in this together, how we build on each other's strengths, how you can have an argument with people, but do it in a way where you hear each other, where you don't diminish each other, where our diversity becomes something to be proud of, not something to be feared. And I think what character education does is, by inculcating values and responsibility, it is a sense of creating power in a virtuous way, in a way that, and sorry to use the Hebrew word, tikkun olam, in a way that repairs the world, and a way that brings, and that shows that we are actually stronger together.
Beautiful. That was yes. It was really interesting when I've been looking at the research on the history of character education, and it used to actually be very embedded in religious settings, in temples, in churches, and that's where people talked about character and morals and values and virtues. And then when church and state got divided, it separated, and then suddenly affiliation went down in our country. And what happened is that people weren't talking about character. It kind of wasn't happening in the school, wasn't happening enough in the home, and if you weren't affiliated to a temple or a congregation, you weren't talking about it. So what we've really seen is a hunger to decouple it from religion. Let's just talk about the universal qualities that connect us. And that's what was so exciting about the research that we put in the Science of Character film, is there's so many things that we talk about what separates us. And these character strengths and virtues are what connect us. And
exactly.
That is what we need to be talking about, especially in this election season and with all the strife happening in the world. It feels like the only thing that keeps me going is I've been focusing on Character Day and all of these amazing schools and teachers and educators that feel that this is an important conversation to have, as we do. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So do you find that the teachers are saying we want to incorporate this more, or is it coming from the schools, or is it kind of coming from everywhere?
So, teachers are not monolithic, and you can, you'll always find an exception to every rule. But what I do find with teachers across the country And frankly, I taught at Clark Barton High School in Brooklyn
Yeah.
For 6 or 7 years in the early 90s. People want our kids to take shared responsibility.
Yeah.
And that, in some ways, is what character education is. So it's easy, it's easy to see why these things were squeezed out of the curriculum in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s first. The moment somebody talked about it, they thought it was controversial because they thought, oh no, you're talking about religious values. I think you're right. When you delink this from religion and you just start thinking about what it means to be a value-based person, or to take shared responsibility, regardless if you get to it from religious overtones or not, it can be delinked. But there's always that was always a piece of the controversy about, is it religiously hinged or not? So that was number one. That was one of the deterrents. Number two, and frankly, the bigger obstacle, was when we became test, and more test.
Right.
Because if the only thing you're focused on in schools is the English test, the math test, and graduation rates, then the things that make you into a whole person, like, how socialization, character, working with each other, playing together in recess, or in my subject area, civics, social studies, these things got squeezed out because the accountability system was only about English, math, and graduation rates. And that's the dominant reason. Now, there's been a yearning, and so it gets snuck in through, okay, we're going to have a curriculum about no bullying. But it's more than no bullying. You have to think about what's the positive. And so all these new restorative justice programs, how you have shared responsibility. I used to talk to my kids a lot about, they used to talk to me about, walking my walk, not just talking my talk. And I used to talk to them, as well as my members, about walking in somebody else's shoes and using that kind of analogy so that people could see it as a way of doing this and building character. So it is really a matter of, we had some, reluctance to engage in something that is controversial, and talking religion is different than religious liberty, but there was always that controversy. But the second piece really was the squeezing out of everything, including recess, because of testing.
Just to go back, I mean, I'm Jewish, and I had, I made the film The Science of Character, and a lot of my Jewish educator friends were like, well, why didn't you talk about the Jewish history, philosophy of character development? I said, because I didn't know about it. And then I got very well schooled in Musar, or Musar, people call it two different things. And I was fascinated, because again, this word, being a mensch, which is being a good person, which, by the way, I want to reclaim for women everywhere, because for too much it's used for just men, the word mensch. But it's about being a good person. So I got very excited, and I, again, kind of decoupled it from religion, because I think there's a lot of Jews that need to engage. I think everyone can engage with these very exciting ideas of Musar, wherever you fall on the spectrum. I love exciting ideas about who you are and who you want to be in the world. And what I love about all of this stuff about character education is that it's not just about developing yourself, it is developing yourself to help the community. And speaking of the community, we have people all over the world right now. If you're listening and you want to ask questions to the amazing Randi, and do it through hashtag Character Day 2016. I already see some questions. You could do it, by the way, for the global audience listening. Hashtag Character Day 2016. Ask any question, and I'm going to go to a couple now.
Right.
Okay.
And as you're doing it, let me just put a little ad in for, we have a website called sharemylesson.com.
I just was on, it's so cool.
And it's, and look, What we try to do
Yeah.
is have a platform for teachers and for others. It's free to anybody all across the world.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of lessons on there about civics, about character education. We frankly, every time, God forbid, or poo, there's a crisis, like a young Black man gets shot. There's a terrorist activity, even after 15 years after 9/11. How do you talk to your kids about these things? Like after San Bernardino, after what happened in Paris. On Share My Lesson, we have a lot of hints and a lot of lessons about how you engage kids, how you talk to them, how you reduce anxiety, how you lift up responsibility and sharing and compassion and caring, and how you try to reduce fear and hatred.
Well, I love that. The Share My Lesson plan, I love how it's divided by age group and topic. And we're launching a hub for Character Day where you can, if you're an educator or a parent, you can search by character strength, like empathy, creativity, humility, courage, and we'll provide different lesson plans and films and books and apps. So we're definitely going to put your thing, we're going to link to it in our hub. And actually,
vice versa.
One of the questions was, how did teaching civics influence your thinking about character? That's from the global.
Oh my God. Look, I firmly believe, and in the first few years of teaching, we weren't in the middle of this test and punish, test and punish, test and punish. And I used to have a project-based assignment for my kids that they had to work somewhere in the community, in a political office or doing something for 10 or so hours, maybe 20 hours, so that they felt engaged in their own lives. And you see a huge reduction in people feeling powerless when they're engaging in some activity that improves their lives or the community's lives.
I love that.
And that's what civics should be. It should not simply be, okay, there are 3 branches of government, and we have to teach that, because we have to teach what democracy is. But more important than the teaching of democracy is the lived experience of it. And that's what civics ought to be.
I love that. I'm seeing if there's another question. I love that. I have a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old, and my 13-year-old just started volunteering at a senior center, and just
fantastic.
It's that, it's just the knitting into community, and it makes the whole community and government it links it all together and helps you understand.
It creates a credibility that government can work.
Yeah.
As opposed to you outsourcing all your power to somebody else.
Yeah.
You're part of what makes it work.
Beautiful. We're gonna have to. You're based in New York, right? You're in
yes,
New York?
I'm in New York and Washington.
Okay, we're gonna have to meet in person. This is too short of a conversation. A lot of things I want to talk to you about. Okay. Another question from the global audience is, do you think that teachers are armed with the right tools to prepare students to handle everything that's happening in the news today?
No. I mean, we look, but we endeavor to try. But think about what's happened.
So much has happened.
Everything, look, I often say to people, let's give up the ghost. We have to be parents' first partners. We have to be the coach, the guidance counselor, the grandma, the stern taskmaster when necessary. I used to say, when I was welcoming new teachers in New York City for all those years, and I would always get a laugh, I would say, look, you are a combination of Mother Teresa, Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King, and you can see I'm dating myself by the next one, and Tony Soprano, all put together. Because what happens is that everything that happens to children, particularly young children, and actually it's not just young children, middle-aged, and teenagers, when they come into your classroom, you're dealing with everything that's happened to them. Yeah. And you have to find a way to meet kids where they are, not where you want them to be, and take them to where you want them to be. And so how can we possibly be prepared for everything that has happened in life to a child? But we try. And so part of the fight we have is how to have the tools and conditions to do our jobs. And one of the things we fight for is we need to have more nurses and guidance counselors in schools. Mental health can't be a stigma.
Yes.
With mental health and physical health need to be things that are available, not on an ad hoc basis, but as part of the panoply of services so that we can actually help kids.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, that's part of where kind of share my lesson comes in. If you've had an anxiety-ridden experience, so God forbid, say a child lived on 23rd Street,
right?
And on Monday walked into school. I was talking to my colleagues at the UFT on Monday and saying, how are the schools? What's going on? How are people? How have you handled it? Because that there is going to be some anxiety and stress when two explosives are found. Thank God no one got killed. But of course there's going to be anxiety about, am I safe?
Yeah.
And that's part of what we have to do. If something happens to a child in their home, like a parent dies suddenly, we have to be able to help them handle it.
Well, I love that you're saying. I mean, I think that's it's got me very excited about the focus on social emotional learning, and
right.
that you're a whole person. Everyone deals with trauma. Everyone deals with challenges, different sets of challenges, and we're going to give you tools to build your character, to help you talk about it, give you a language to break it down, and resources like share your lesson plan, my lesson plan, and the stuff that we're providing.
Right, exactly. And helping kids with resilience.
Yes.
Because we all fall down. We all trip up. We all mess up. So how do we help kids have the tools that they need so that they can pick themselves up and face a failure and then be able to deal with it?
Yeah. Listen, we're out of time. I'm like, you and I are going to meet in New York. We're going to have a nice
fantastic.
You're amazing. I love your leadership. I loved reading a lot more about your career in the last week. And thank you for being part of Character Day. I'm sure everyone listening and watching has just been as inspired as I am that you're leading the teachers, and I'm so happy to have you. And
thank you for doing this. It's really, really important to do this. So really, I'm so grateful on behalf of all of my members. Really, thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye-bye.